Okay, so we got another couple examples here for our half angle formulas. We got a couple things that we got going. One, we need to know whether we are positive or negative. So that might be one of the first things I'm going to do. Is this guy a positive or a negative guy? So remember, we take the angle range that's given, and then I take this bad guy and I divide it by 2. Excuse me. And so the half angle, if the angle is between 270 and 360, which is the fourth quadrant, that means the half angle is going to be half that range, so it's going to be between 135 and 180. So this is second quadrant, and we're dealing with sine, which is right here, and so we're positive. So I'm going to be using the positive one. So the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to write down the formula. Okay, so I know that I'm positive. And theta over 2 is equal to the square root of 1 minus cosine of the angle, all divided by 2. And then now I have two choices here. I can either, one, draw a triangle because I need a trig ratio to put in, right? I want to know what cosine of theta is. Well, geez, we make it real hard for you. We tell you that cosine of theta is 3/8. So I just, Mr. Dickin thinks I'm mean. So we we just take the 3/8 and we plug it into the equation. I didn't put the plus or minus in front because we already established that it's negative. So I got 1 minus 3/8 all divided by 2. I'm going to do this one slightly different than the last one. So how do we manipulate the inside? So in this problem, the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to get a common denominator. So I'm going to just work on the top part of the fraction. So the top part of the fraction is 1 minus 3/8. So that's the same as 8 divided by 8 minus 3/8 all divided by 2. And so I reduce the fraction in the numerator, and that's equal to 5/8 divided by 2. And now I just have one term here. So how do we divide fractions? We multiply by the reciprocal. So I'm going to go ahead. I don't know if that guy's going to. So I'm just going to go ahead and multiply by the reciprocal of 2 over 1, which is 1/2. And this is going to give me 5 over 16, all square root of 16 is 4. So my solution is root 5 over 4. So here's what's happening. I tell you I got some angle, it's in the third quadrant, and I know cosine of that angle is going to equal negative 3/8, or excuse me, positive 3/8. It's in the fourth quadrant. So hey, if I divide that angle by 2, what is sine going to equal? Okay, so now, not knowing what the angle is, how can I solve the problem to get the trig ratio if I don't even know what the angle is to begin with? Okay, and so I apply this formula and it tells me, oh, okay, well, if you divide the angle in half, sine is going to equal root 5 over 4. Okay, so we know that that would be the height, if you will, or the vertical distance, because that's what sine is, it's y. Okay, and so now I'm going to hop into another problem, and we'll go through that, and it'll be another half angle example. Okay, so we got another example here. So first thing, boom, positive, negative. So I'm going to look at this guy and I'm going to say, is this guy a positive or a negative quadrant? Well, here's maybe something that we should think about. If I'm in the second quadrant, which this guy is, and I divide it by 2, then I'm going to end up in the first quadrant, right? Which we're going to see that my half angle is going to be somewhere between 90 degrees and 45 degrees. Okay, so good. So 2, I'm going to think to myself, okay, I'm positive, right? Okay, first quadrant, they're all positive. So now I'm dealing with sine of theta over 2. So when I create my formula, I make sure I don't have a positive in front of it. And when we're dealing with sine, it's 1 minus cosine of theta all over 2. Hey, we got another one of these problems where we make it really hard for you guys. We divide it by, hey, I give you what cosine is. So all I have to do is plug that in. Actually, the problems are kind of hard because, I mean, there's a little bit of work with simplifying your answer, but the setup should be pretty straightforward. So I'm going to go ahead and shrink this. And now that I've gotten it shrunk, I'm going to do a little bit of work here. I'm going to plug in to our formula and just kind of work through the simplification process. So I know it's going to equal 1 minus, and I'm going to put this negative 5, 6 in parentheses because we got a negative next to a negative. Okay, so that's going to be 1 plus 5, 6 all divided by 2. I don't know which method you prefer. Either just multiply everything by a half and distribute and work with it. I kind of like working with the top and simplifying that a little bit more and then multiplying by the reciprocal. That's just my personal preference. Because I know that the common denominator between 5, 6, and 1 is 6 over 6, right? All divided by 2. I combine my numerator, so I get 11 over 6 all divided by 2. Okay, now I'm going to go ahead and multiply by the reciprocal, and I get the square root of 11 over the square root of 12. Okay, so now I got to simplify this. First step, I may think about reducing this 12 to make my numbers easier to rationalize. So I'm going to take root 11, and this 12 is 4 and 3, right? So that's 2 root 3. So now when I rationalize, the only thing I got to multiply the top and the bottom by is the root 3's. And it's going to come out reduced for me, which is nice. And that would end up being 6. So I got root 33 over 6. And this is a positive, right? Because we were in the positive quadrant, so we're good. Okay? So once again, you'll get pretty comfortable with the formulas, but the key part is working through the simplification process.